Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Yesha if you're new here. Today I want to talk about red flags in residency applications and how you can kind of come back from them. So what are generally considered red flags? I would say the most common red flags that we see include, step failures, failures in your medical school classes, time off during residency, not matching the first time. So if you're like reapplying, which is super common, people reapplying into radiology, so we do see that quite a lot. And the last is professionalism violations. I would say that a lot of them they're kind of all handled slightly differently, but for the most part, I really believe in controlling your narrative. What does that really mean? Well, I think that what you need to do is talk about what happened in your personal statement. That way, the person reviewing your application has a real idea of what happened when you failed step one. Like, why did it happen? Did you have something going on in your life? Was there, some other type of life event that happened? And that way, at least there is an explanation for that, and that may not be quite as big of a deal, especially if you showed that you improved on step two, that you have not failed anything since then, etc. I think that can really show growth, and that's a really easy thing to talk about in your personal statement. Especially if you have examples like that, like, okay, I then learned how to study for step two, and you can see that I totally crushed it and things like that. I think that's really important. As far as time off, I think a lot of people not a lot of people take time off, but it's not that uncommon, I would say. And most people have a really good reason for it. Someone is sick, maybe you yourself are sick and you had to have a lot of medical treatment, something else happened in your life, etc. As long as you say what happened, I would suggest putting it in your personal statement so that you can really control how it's stated. And that way there's no question when it comes to reviewing your application. Everyone understands what's going on and they know that you're committed to medicine. I think that's the major thing, is when people take time off. I don't know why it's really considered a red flag, other than people believe that you're not committed, but you came back, you finished medical school, you graduated, and now you're applying for residency. I'm not sure how you can be more committed, but this is only my personal opinion, and I know that other people believe that time off is a red flag, so that's why I'm addressing it. But as long as you're controlling it and you're saying what happened, I think that that's probably the most important thing. It's always better to control your own narrative, and I'm going to say that 8 times during this video, probably more, because that way you can control your story, and this is what happened, and now there are no questions when someone's reviewing your application. When it comes to professionalism violations, the way that these are reported are usually on the dean's letter. Now, most of the time, I don't know actually if it's most of the time, but you're able to review your dean's letter before it gets sent out. Make sure you look at what it says about your professionalism violation and make sure that it's in line with what you're going to talk about in your personal statement. The reason I say this is because a lot of times there will be a really vague statement about what happened, like there was a professionalism violation and then the dean made you remediate something and then everything was fine. Like, that doesn't tell us anything about what actually happened. I think it is really important to address it in some way so that the person interviewing you kind of knows what to expect when they talk to you. I think it's worse to just leave it on your application kind of as like a red mark, and they don't even understand like what that means. That's my personal opinion. I know some people will advocate for not saying anything at all as far as professionalism issues go. Just expect that you will get questions about it, and you will definitely have to have a very good answer come interview day for it. And so just depending on what it is, I can't give, there's no one piece of advice that will work for every single person. But professionalism issues are a little bit like tricky. I hate that word professionalism. I think it just gets people in trouble for no reason. But in general, they are, in my opinion, I think that those are kind of worse than step failures, because everyone, I don't know if everyone has failed an exam, but like failing an exam happens. But professionalism is really more about you and your character. And so I think that talking about it in your personal statement can really help show how you've kind of grown as a person since then, or kind of tell us what happened exactly. And make sure, you review your dean's letter to see exactly what's going to be stated so that you're not surprised by questions during interview day. My personal advice is to talk about it in your personal statement and talk about how you've grown since then and how you learned about something or something along those lines. But they can be tough. I think that out of all of the ones that are hardest to address, out of all the red flags, I would say professionalism issues are definitely the most difficult to address. And you can definitely expect some questions related to that on your interview day. I really do believe that taking the time to address it in your personal statement is the right way to go, because that shows that you're not shying away from it. You're not saying that it didn't happen. You're not hoping that we miss it. You're just saying, this is what happened, and this is how I grew from it, and this is how I'm going to bring my new character to your program. That's what I would say. But it's very difficult, and unfortunately red flags are really tough. I mean, when it comes to reapplying, like I said, that can be considered a red flag. I would also have an answer ready about why you are all of a sudden changing specialties if you are applying into a new specialty, and also why you feel like you didn't match the first time. I think that will help you if you feel like you've pinpointed a reason and how you're kind of not, how you've changed your application since then or what you've done since then. Those things can help show that you're like, you know, you're not giving up on medicine, but you really want to like continue, you're persistent, you're motivated, you want to continue to grow, you really want to match. I think those things are really important to include in your application as well. So I think addressing that in your personal statement can be very helpful. I will say that a lot of times we have people that don't address things in the personal statement, and that's an avenue that you can choose to take. However, I always feel like they're not telling me something. That's how I feel. I feel like if you don't come out and say it, I feel like you're hiding something from me, and I would rather have someone that made a mistake who owns up to it. You know what I mean? I feel like all of us would want a colleague that you made a mistake, you own up to it, this is what happened, it's never gonna happen again, this is how I've changed since then, rather than someone who's hoping that you kind of miss it, you don't see it in the application, and then they're kind of like, oh yeah, you saw that? Like, okay, yeah, I did have a professionalism violation. For me, that's like, yeah. That's a personal opinion, and you should definitely, if you do have a red flag on your application, you should ask, you know, your advisors, your counselors, and most importantly, talk to people that are in the program director role, because I will say that sometimes the advice you get from counselors and advisors is not always the same as what you're gonna get from other people. So ask around and do what feels right to you and what is most authentic to you, because you're the one who's, you know, ultimately submitting your application, and you wanna feel comfortable with what you did and your decision ultimately. So that's my advice. It's challenging. It's definitely an uphill battle when you have some of these things on your application, but some of them are easier to deal with than others. If you do have specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at YeshaGuptaMD on both Instagram and Twitter, and I try my best to respond to the messages that I get. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.